back to another episode of Napp Motorsports. Today, we're building an exhaust, and this one's going to be titanium. For starters, if the C8 does that, it's because it has a faulty hood latch, and it's going to be doing that for a while, so just ignore it. So in the last episode, or 2 episodes ago, depending on how we release these, we 2.5 swapped the NC with ITBs, and we have the Goodwin 2-inch primary header on the car, which is big. And I've cut off the end flange, and I put a V-band on it. We are going to be doing we'll call it 90% titanium exhaust on this thing. I am going to be running a cat, which is what I'm holding right here. This is a 100 cell high flow cat. This car is going to be loud, so I want to do everything I can to quiet it down. I didn't want to buy titanium cats because I don't even know if they exist. I'm sure they do, but I didn't want to pay for it. So this is a stainless steel cat, and what we're going to do is come right off the header into the cat, and then on the other side of the cat we'll put a V-band, and then from there we will transition to titanium. So the stainless section will be like this long, and won't really matter, and then we'll V-band it and go titanium the rest of the way. So we're going to do stainless flange on one side, titanium flange on the other, and then that lets you adapt the two together instead of trying to weld them together, which isn't possible. So we're going to get this up in the air. I'm going to show you what I'm looking at. This section should be pretty easy. It's just going to come right down and then right into the pipe. I am waiting on titanium filler rod, which will be here in 2 days. So I can't do that today, but in this episode, we will be doing the whole exhaust. So it is going to be catted, resonator underneath the driver's seat, and then 2 mufflers at the back of the car because I want to quiet this thing down as much as possible. Sorry if it's very off color, I have a light shining on it. So what we have there is the flange off the header. That is a 2.5-inch header flange or V-band flange, and obviously we're not going to do that. But what I want is for this to sit kind of right about here. So I'll give you a kind of relationship. So as far forward as possible, and then we'll put a flange pretty much right on the end, if not legitimately right on the end, which will allow us to kind of navigate and go back for the rest of the exhaust. So resonator is probably gonna have to go here and not, that's so annoying, and not under the driver's seat, which would be here. So the cat will go here, which should still help with some of the drone. But let's figure out kind of what we gotta do. I'll probably tape this to a one of those things, and we'll get it in place and we'll kind of play with some measurements. I have some pie cuts, so we'll end up jogging it over and jogging it back. We got pretty free rein on this, which is very nice. And there's no hangers back here. The first hanger is over here. So we'll do this section, and once we switch over to titanium, we'll do the rest of it. So I have the cat up here. I taped all the way around it so I don't scratch it too badly. And then I just taped it to this so I can do height adjustment and tilt. Show you what I've got. 2 pie cuts coming off of here that gets you perpendicular or parallel to the ground, and then a straight section, and this is a slip fit, so like the pipe is in here just a little bit, which gives me some play, and then I'm just going to tack it on the car. So I'm going to wheel my welder out here. I'm going to tack all this together, so I'll do tack, 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 4 spots, so this is fixed, and then we'll come out here with the car with the welder, tack it on here a couple times, drop it, weld it all out, and then I'll weld a V-band onto that side, and then the cat section will be all set. So here you've got it. Got header side, it's still kind of hot. Header side goes through, and then the cat. And if you're a welder, you'll know I messed up by not bolting a flange to this when I welded it out. So hopefully that didn't warp too bad. This is gonna bolt up, and this will be the only stainless section. And then this side is titanium, which will go to the rest of the exhaust. There you go. There you have the stainless portion of the exhaust, shoots straight back at the moment. And then off of here, I'm probably just gonna slap a 45 and then another 45 to kick it over. We'll go back. We will put the resonator. We will jog through here a little bit. And then right here, I'm gonna have it split off into a Y. And then it'll be probably one muffler and one muffler at an angle coming up. So from the back, you'll have two mufflers there, which will look pretty sick. And I think I'll do, I might step it up to 3" out the back. I'll have to get some adapters for that, but 3" and then maybe like a little turn down section, but we'll see when we get there. That can be decided at the end. Yeah, so pick you guys up when I start the titanium. For now, I'm gonna take this off and I'm gonna weld out 1, 2, 3, 4 sections, and then we'll make this next piece with a V-band on it. So let's get that knocked out real quick. It's always a good idea to weld as you go, because if things move, if you tack it all together and it fits perfectly, then you weld it out, it's just not gonna fit. So we're gonna do that, weld this out, put the next piece on, put the V-band on it, weld it out, and then we'll do the hanger tonight, and I think that will be it. So I promise this will make sense in a minute. I'm gonna end the exhaust a little different, at least for the first section, and I'm gonna show you that. I just wanna tack this up, weld it out, and then we'll put it up and we'll tack it onto the existing piece. So while that's cooling off on the floor over there, I'm gonna show you where we're at. So we're all the way back here, and here's where I was gonna put the V-band. You can see it gets a little close to this guy, and that's because I came out technically too far in this little gap here. I could have kept it much closer to the diff if I had wanted, but this is actually gonna work out really well because now I have a 45 coming off of there. So what you just saw me weld up comes off of there, comes straight over, and then it comes out pretty much dead center right here in this spot, which is a perfect spot for a V-band to then split off into the muffler sections left and right. So once that cools off, I do have it marked. You can see a little Sharpie mark right there. I'm just gonna double check it, make sure it's in a good spot. We will tape it up, tack it on, and then weld that section out. And that should be, I might put a straight section right here, just a tiny little one, to get the V-band clear of the subframe. And then that's where it would end. So the downside, I was like, I must have been stingy when I ordered the bends. So I don't really want to do pie cuts because it's a pain. So I have 3 90s left. 2 of them are going to go to the split here because it's just, I need 2 90s to make a split. And then I think I'm going to cut them, make them 90s, but then cut them at 45s. And then the mufflers will come up, or something like that, maybe a 60 on each side. And then the mufflers will come up, and then we'll have 1 more 90, which I could use into 45s on the end to come straight. Obviously, if I have to order more material, that's not a big deal. It's just kind of a time sink at this point. But I think I can make it work if I use those last 3 90s perfectly, like literally perfectly. So we will see. That'll be a tomorrow problem for me. I do have a ton of 2.5" straight. So worst case, you know, I could do just a bunch of like pie cuts, but I really don't want to do that. So, all right, I've got these little clamp things that work mediocrely. Not a huge fan, honestly. But here you go. So that will come right out of there, and it's a little bit skewed to the right, which is okay. I do have some clearance in here, right there, in there. Actually, kind of more than I have right there. So when we pull that exhaust hanger to pull tension on it this way, once the flex pipe is in, this should be centered up pretty dang well. So I'm okay with that. Also, not like perfect, but look at that penetration. That is amazing, at least for my stuff. So I'm gonna tack that up. The mark is still good. I could bring it up a little bit, which would bring it over as well, but I think this gives us the best of both worlds with clearance. So we're gonna tack that, weld it out, and then I think we'll put a little straight and a V-band on the end of this. So actually maybe I'll do that first, just because it's really hard to manipulate this entire exhaust. So we'll do straight section that's maybe 1" long or something like that. just to get the V-band to come out to like there. So I'm gonna do that really quickly, and then when I pick you guys up, I'll have this all welded out. There you have it. Again, just a tiny bit off of center. All around, that heat shield right there is gonna come off because it is falling apart, and then that resonator will clear, but I am happy with this so far. And there's a ton of adjustment when you install it too. You can rotate it, which moves this piece around, which is kind of nice. It is pointed down a little bit, but we will just bias a cut or bias the weld on here so that it picks it back up. We're gonna have to do something pretty extreme to come up anyways here, so that might kill the last 40 or last 90 that we have instead of doing the tip ends, but we will see. So tomorrow I will come back and we'll kind of mock the mufflers up, but I think that's what we're gonna do. I think we're just gonna come straight up at an angle, like bing, and then 45 out. So we're back, and I'm gonna start working on the up piece for the mufflers. So I took one of the 90s and I cut it in half to make two 45s, which I might have to cut that again into like a 22.5, but we'll see. And then this guy, I just have tacked each of these to like a sacrificial piece of, or a drop of titanium. And then what I'm gonna do is cut right down the center and right down the center. And what that'll give me is a, you know, half of this pipe and half of that pipe will merge together to make a perfect Y-merge. So I just have them tacked to this so I can hold it in the bandsaw, and then we'll cut these tacks off and we will weld the open ends together, and that will give us a merge. So in the bandsaw now, if I cut down the top, it's kind of hard to show it, but it's gonna cut that end off, and then I'm just gonna flip it around, do the same thing, and I'll set the little stop up so that I know I'm at the right spot. We'll cut it, sand it smooth, and then we'll have a merge. It's a pretty trick. So now I'm just gonna flip it around, rest it against the bump stop. This is what you're left with, by the way. If you wanna make something cool with that or whatever, but that's what you're left with. Flip it around, put it against the bump stop, cut it again, and then we'll cut the tacks off so that we can take the whole pipe out. Sorry for the weird voiceover, but I lost audio. So here you can see the two halves that we cut earlier. I sanded them smooth and they join together like this. So now the top is a 2.5 inch and it splits off into two perfect 2.5 inch exits. So kind of a cool trick. You can buy them. I'm going to cut these at 45s so that the mufflers stick up at the perfect angle. But once it's all welded together, I'll show you guys that. So I got a little ahead of myself here, but I did weld it all together and I cut them at 45s, which will let me put the mufflers up. And then it's tacked to the V-band so that I can clock it and kind of make sure that everything is super level. And then I went ahead and welded these like 6-inch extensions onto the mufflers. And this is a little hard to do one-handed, but you can kind of get the idea here. So it's going to shoot up and the other one is going to do the same thing pointing the other way. And that will be the kind of Y-merge that you see from the back of the car. So, and then after that, we'll do tips at either end and the exhaust will be done. So here you can get the idea of what I'm going for. Everything is tacked together at this point, but I've got a nice symmetrical Y merge coming off the back, which is going to look sweet when the bumper is cut in a minute. But yeah, you can see how it just tacks up to the 45s and it kicks everything straight over. And then we'll pretty much just need a 45 off the tip to give us the actual tip exit there. So looks pretty good. Time to weld this out and then we'll finish the exhaust up. So I'm back and I had to order some pieces to make these tips, but what we're going to end up doing, because if you see when I mock this up here, it's a little bit tight to the top of the bumper cutout, is we're actually just going to chop the black plastic piece off the bumper. So I'm going to follow this body line up and around and we're going to delete that entire thing. So I'm going to be using this guy. It's a little body saw thing from Harbor Freight, of course. And the hope is I'm just going to be able to kind of walk it up, and I'm going to do it right in the groove line in here, and then I'll finish it with a little sander afterwards just to make it all smooth. So let's see how this goes. It's not terrible. I'm just gonna get the little sander and we're gonna trim around this whole edge just to smooth it out a little bit. But I think it's pretty good. So the real theory behind that was because when this was on the ground, you couldn't see it. And what's the point in doing a full titanium exhaust if you can't see it from the back? So now, if you're behind me, you can see it in traffic. And once the tips are on, it will look a whole lot more complete. So let's get it back up in the air and then we'll mock the tips up. We'll tape them on super well. We'll bring it back down, look at it, and figure out how we want it to sit. So kind of the hardest part about any exhaust is getting the tips level. If there's two, if there's one, super easy, doesn't really matter. I've got two here. This is the driver's side and this is the passenger side. You can tell they're a little bit different just because of where the mufflers ended up, but from the back you won't see it. So this is the passenger side. We're gonna get this one square and level, and then we'll make this one square and level on the driver's side. I'm gonna take some measurements, see where I sit, and then we'll set it down on the ground. I'm gonna grab a flashlight so you can see it a little better. But obviously with the diffuser or the bumper cut, they're gonna sit lower in the opening because that cuts off like an inch. But I was scheming around yesterday and there's a really cool diffuser you can put in the back. So if I don't like how this looks, I can put the diffuser in and it's just like it really hugs the bumper. Boffy sells one. And they have a much like shallower upper section over the muffler tips, so it should fit perfectly. And because these tips come out in the factory location, that should be totally fine. So let me grab a flashlight real quick. So now from the back, you've got the dual setup. I think it looks pretty sweet, illuminated. And while it is a little uneven just in length, because like that side has an adapter and this side is a little longer on the tip, it still looks very good in my opinion. So, and it's very symmetrical at a glance. The cans are at the same spot at the same angle. So that should be pretty sick. Next step is I'm gonna bring it up. I'm gonna mark it with Sharpie. We will tack it. We will put it back on, make sure it's in a good spot. We'll take it off again. We'll weld it all out. And then the finishing touch for the exhaust is going to be polishing the whole thing. So they are tacked. They are good and level. And while it's off and like welding and cooling, I am gonna spray this black just so you can't see it, but yeah, that'll be pretty solid. So I'm gonna weld both of those sides out right now. We'll put them up, make sure it's all good, and then we're gonna take the whole titanium section off and use a pipe polisher on it. There you have it, all welded out. Got a little hot on that pass on top there, but same with those, let off a little early. But we're good, so now I'm gonna drop both this section and then the center section, and I'm gonna set up my pipe polisher that I just bought, and we're gonna see how that works. So just for reference, this is what I've got. It is it's meant to polish belts, so I'll like run this along here, move it up and down. I have the finest Scotch-Brite pad that I've got on it. I do have one coarser. I'm just hoping that all I need is the fine, so I don't have to go over it multiple times. And then this is just such a big angle grinder with this crazy attachment. I have this clamp to the table. I'm probably gonna put one more clamp on it just to make it a little more stable. And then we're gonna work our way around, we'll flip it over, we'll do the other side, and then we'll do the Y section. Polish was maybe not the right word, but it's brushed. And this looks significantly better than this. So it's all matching now, so if you look under the car, you won't see like the unpolished straights and the polished corners. So I'm gonna flip this over, do the other side, then we'll rotate it, do both sides of that thing. I'm gonna knock out the Ys, and I will pick you guys up when it's all polished. It's not perfect by any means, but it is way better than it was. And when I do the exhaust for this guy, and that C8 over there, I'm gonna pre-sand the tubes when they're like in their just natural stock. That way it's a lot easier, and then I won't have to do it afterwards. So I'm gonna throw this on. We're gonna take some pictures, I'll give you guys a walkthrough at the end of everything, and then that'll be a wrap. Sorry if you can hear the motorcycles next door, firing them up because it's nice out. So let's go over what we've got and what we chose, what we did. So I've got this stainless steel section with a high flow cat there, so hopefully it will get rid of the smell and quiet it down a little bit. I do have space there, right here, for a flex pipe. I've talked to a few people and they said don't bother, which is surprising. So we're gonna run it without for now, and then if it cracks, obviously it's my own car, so I can just fix it, and then I will have a flex pipe on hand and we will get it swapped out. It then transitions through a V-band to titanium right here, and you can see the O2 bung, which might be not at a good angle with the trans, but we'll see. It should show up tomorrow. And then, so we go 45 over 45 into a Tacking 12-inch overall length, 3-inch outside diameter resonator. And then we do a little like 22.5-degree jog. There's a hanger, which I gotta put bolts back in that, but these are seized, so. There's a hanger there. Then we come back, and then it jogs down with just enough clearance around the diff to pretty much the center, which is where I have another V-band. And then at the center, what I did here is I took two 90s, cut them halfway down one of the openings, welded them together, and then cut them at 45, and then put on some straight sections that I believe are like 6 or 7 inches long to dual race mufflers, also from Tacking. I just hid the logo because it wouldn't have been symmetrical. So like this one is upside down and that one is right side up. So it would have been like Tacking, and then it would have said Tacking that way, which upside down, which isn't good. So hit the logos, and then it comes out and steps up to dual 3.5-inch tips for nothing but aesthetics, which I think is a good call because the 3-inch would have been way too small, and 2.5 definitely would have been like just tiny. So I'm gonna put this on the ground, show you guys what it looks like. Sadly, I cannot fire it up today because I'm still waiting on the wideband, and then I have to wire the ECU in, and we gotta do first start. But the next episode for this car will be final wiring, ECU install, and first fire up. So not sure when that'll be, hopefully in a week or so, my time. And then we'll get it fired up, and then we can move on. So there it is on the ground. It's kind of tough to see, it's a little dark in here. They don't stick past the car from the top. Just as you step back, they start to come into frame, so it's not like they're sticking out like blast pipes. From the side, they stick out a tiny bit. Just I didn't want to like slip the bumper up. Worst case, I can always add some tip to each one, but I don't think I'm gonna want to do that. I'm gonna drive it for a while when it's running to see if I want that diffuser. I kind of like the exposed muffler look thing, it's pretty slick. So there's the dual muffler setup with dual tips and everything. Hopefully it's not too loud. What I'll do is, if it is too loud actually, is I will put right here, I'll do like a Heimholz, so I'll come off and come over with another muffler on each side, just to add like a second chamber. But we're gonna figure that out once the car's together, or once it's running. Obviously right now I don't know if it's too loud, and I don't wanna spend the money on 2 more titanium mufflers because they're not cheap. So that is gonna be a wrap for this episode. Again, I'm sorry there's no audio for the exhaust yet because I haven't fired the car up. We're close. I have the ECU. I'm waiting on a wiring pin out so that I can wire the one wire in for the wideband. I'm waiting for the wideband itself. And then we should be able to load some sort of bass tune and get it fired up. And then once it is running, we'll iron out whatever kinks it's got here. And then the video after that will be actually tuning it on a hub dyno about half an hour away from here. So we will go through and through, and then once it's nice out, I'll do some driving impressions of it. Not that those videos ever do well, but I want to give you guys like the full, complete package of the car. So fingers crossed, first start stuff goes well. It's pretty straightforward 2.5 swap. Internally, the ITBs are the complications, so we will see. But again, I'm running on, so thank you guys for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and if you're not subscribed, hit that button down below. Make sure you like the video. If you want to see more fab stuff, I can film this car and that car. I'm supposed to be doing a turbo K-swap BRZ. So I've got some stuff coming up. If you guys want to see that, let me know. It's kind of a Miata deviation, but it might just be interesting to you guys. So let me know down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.